everyone, my name is Lisa, and here's what I have today. Some Buldak Carbonara spicy ramen. Some visual. Okay. And then I also have some kimchi to go along with it. And then another spicy thing that I have to eat is some blue Takis. So I will be trying those in the middle of the video. And then, for the cool down portion, I have some nice daikon radish, non-spicy daikon radish to go with the ramen. And then for recovery purposes, I have some strawberry milk. Okay, there you go. Some nice strawberry milk at the ready. And then again, for recovery reasons and for science, some animal crackers. Go get a spicy snack and let's get into the spooky videos. Here we go. Haunted house stories.
Why is it 8 in the morning and I'm already dealing with a bunch of bullshit? Like, my anxiety is through the roof. I have lived in this house for over 5 years, and this is the first time I've ever dealt with this, and I don't even know what to do. I'm literally going to break this down for you guys, and I even have proof of what I'm about to freaking go over with you. But before I do, I just want to show Dexter, because he is the main character of the story. He is fine. He is safe. He's sleeping and snoring away. Okay, now that I've got that out of the way, can we please talk about what the hell just freaking happened? Okay, just stick with me, guys. So me and Dexter have this little routine where we sit outside my door every night, and I come down and I always let him out. Like, it's kind of like our thing that we do. And every night he comes in and I give him a treat. I finish everything, with what I'm doing down here, and then I lock up completely. I'm super OCD about locking up.
The ramen is good, by the way.
I double check my doors because I've had situations in the past, I don't mess around. So after I brought Dexter in, I gave him his treat and I watched him walk to his chair. That is his chair. That's his little area. He also has a bed, but he loves his chair. And so I had some inventory. So I was going through some of those items last night after Dexter came in. So after he came in, I locked the door completely. Did not open that door again after he came in. And I literally have proof of that because I took photos of some of the inventory last night, and you can see that my door is completely locked down. Okay guys, so for transparency, I'm gonna go ahead and slip in one of the photos that I took last night, just so you can see that the door was completely locked down after Dexter came in. Okay, so we are all on the same page now. We can clearly see that this door behind me was completely locked down, okay? I literally watched my dog walk to his bed like he does every night with his bone in his mouth and laid down. I proceeded to take a few photos. Not even 10 minutes went by and I shut everything down, checked the doors, and went to bed. So why did I wake up a few hours later and come downstairs to this door wide open with my baby boy, my fur baby, my Dexter, in here, laying in here? Now mind you, this has 3 different locks. I don't play. It is my inventory room for, the items that I sell online, and then there is my craft room, okay? We make it work, okay? This room is not heated, okay? I have no idea how he got out here. I have no idea how that door opened, because this door leads to the backyard. this door was locked. And the crazy thing is that I have a security camera and I don't have it up. So I brought it down specifically because of this, and I am literally going to set it up today. I'm someone that has a routine, especially with Dexter, because he's been here with me for like years, and this isn't something that I would just do. I literally, the second this all happened, I jumped back and checked the photos because I was like, oh my gosh, did I do it? Maybe the door was half open or like, what the heck? I was really tired. No, completely locked down. So that means that something in this house unlocked that door. It makes zero sense to me. I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'm going to keep an eye on Dexter. I can have him sleep in Maddie's room tonight just to make sure he's good. And I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. Like I haven't even had a cup of coffee yet, guys. This is not the first time that doors have been opened in that back craft room when I woke up. But this was the first time that my baby boy was put in the middle of it. And I don't like that. So yeah, great way to start the day. Why is it 8?
That's scary. Do not mess with people's dogs, Okay. Next.
There is one particular haunted location that scares me probably more than any other, because not only do you have to sign a contract before investigating there saying that they're not liable if you get hurt or physically attacked by any kind of entity that lives inside of here, but also if you die on the premises, or I think around 72 hours after leaving the premises, the spirits or the owners are not liable. This is Hill House. And the reason that this place is so immersed in Mineral Wells, Texas and its history, because from roughly 1929 to 1923, this was the place that was doing all the illegal activity for the Baker Hotel. What was going on during those years? Oh yeah, Prohibition. Because of all the attention of the quote-unquote crazy water, the family called the Kyles came into town. And they were like, man, we gotta benefit off this too. So they decided to build a house and make it into a healthcare facility, utilizing the water and all its popularity. Sometime between 1929 and 1933, what was going on? Oh yeah, Prohibition. So this very unassuming house became the hub of all the illegal activity that was going on at the Baker Hotel down the street. But what exactly was it supplying? Oh yes, working women and alcohol. It went from a healthcare facility to a brothel. Allegedly, from what is known, during its time as a brothel, 3 unalivings occurred, 3 of these being schmurders. From this, one of these bodies was hid beneath the stairs, and another one has never been recovered. In the 1970s, during the peak of the Satanic Panic, this house was allegedly used for rituals. The Montgomery family moved in and started to summon things. And one of the original wells was actually located on this property. This place has seen several owners since, and the rest of the history is kind of hazy. And even the history we do know is still in the alleged territory. But what I do know is the effect that this place has on people today. People have reported getting almost an addiction to coming onto this property. After investigating in it once, people have this need to come back. It has quite a strong Facebook fan base, almost a couple hundred positive reviews on Google. People will leave having dreams about it. Even those who haven't actually investigated the place have felt this draw to it. People that pass by the house will even sometimes just see a shadow figure outside in the front yard trying to invite you inside. Approaching the property, being around the property, people have reported a sense of unease or just being watched. And it is so deeply fascinating and eerie to me that so many people have this similar feeling and reaction to becoming addicted to the house, whenever also so many people get physically harmed being there too. There's over 600 reported injuries, specifically scratches. And the little scratches that you see on Ghost Adventures where they're oh my god, dude, I'm scratched. And you're okay, that's, looks like you rubbed your neck, dude. These are, they're deep. If you decide to look up the scratches that happen at Hill House, they're deep. I'm not going to include a photo here. If you're watching videos of it, you can go online, you can watch this woman physically be yanked out of the bed. This is not an uncommon occurrence either. Lots of activity of people being yanked, thrown, punched, bit, rushed at. Even been some cases of possession that has occurred at this house. Reportedly 11 entities that reside here. Some will even actually try to get you to make deals with them or agree to something that you don't want to agree to. I really want to talk about one particular entity that resides there. His name is Toby. This is Toby. I don't know what he looks like to you, but he looks pretty demonic to me. He is thought to be the thing that causes all the violence that happens to investigators in the house, as well as a lot of psychological distress. People experience overwhelming feels of dread, anger, fear, the need to flee out of the house. The question is, why is a place this terrifying in Mineral Wells, Texas? There's a lot of haunted locations where the history is really bad and it doesn't manifest some dark demonic creature. It can be broken down into a few theories. Some people think that this house is just a gateway or a portal for some of these things to walk through, or that maybe Toby had just always been there. The town itself was obviously filled with a lot of sadness and a lot of tragedies because of people wanting to come and get better. And this house was built right next to one of the original wells. A lot of the times things that are dark are attracted to things that have a lot of human despair. Maybe it's just an accumulation of all the negative energy over the years. Maybe he's an entity that existed long before the house was even built. It was dormant for all these years until he was freed by the construction of the house or the opening of the well. Maybe there's just been some energy created between the Hill House and the Baker Hotel together. But there's also so many other haunted locations with really dark histories that didn't end up with anything like Toby. So I still have the question on why Mineral Wells? Even though I try to stay away from a lot of the demonic stuff, I will say I am intrigued. I made the decision to go. I'm going to pick up my friend from the airport, and we're gonna head down to Mineral Wells.
Oh. Good luck. Holy cow. Alright, next video.
One of Where the Hell Did I Move? Haunted historical house in Appalachia built in the 1800s that used to be a funeral home and allegedly a Civil War hospital addition. Oh yeah, and the only neighbors were not one but two huge cemeteries, and the backyard was surrounded by the woods. Lived there for nearly 4 years. I do not live there anymore. We all experienced a lot of creepy things while living there, so this is going to be like a really long story time. They take multiple parts, and I have told these stories on here before, not all of them, but some of them, but I got scared and I took them all down. Or when I was talking about it online, it was like it got mad or something. I don't know, but things escalated and got so much worse, so I just took the videos down. Like, for y'all to fully understand the creepiness and all the context behind the story, I need to go back to the very beginning. Let's go back to before I ever moved in. I was living in an apartment with just me and my 2 kids. The reason I was even looking for a house to move into was because a neighbor of mine came to me and brought it to my attention that I had a peeping Tom looking in my back window every single night. Ended up being like a stalker situation where they tried to gain access to my home on several different occasions. I filed a police report and started looking for a new house. Keep in mind that I had a stalker. Important later on in the story. We were looking for a house for like a year. Houses are hard to come by in Appalachia. My area, all the houses are already lived in, and when one comes available, it's rented within 5 minutes. I heard there was an old historical house for rent for only $600 a month. It's a pretty well-known house in our town. Like, pretty much everybody knows what house this is. This house is huge, and it's beautiful, and it's creepy and eerie and all the thing. $600 was only $40 more a month than I was paying for my apartment. And like I said, this house was huge. It fell in my lap. It seemed like it was meant to be, and it was a steal. So I was like, of course, I'm going to call these people and check it out. It's one of the biggest homes in my small town, and probably one of the oldest that's still lived in. Like I said, everyone in my town knows this house. It sits up on this big hill across from this huge graveyard, and there's another graveyard to the left of it. And then there's just woods surrounding the backyard. It's on like the outskirts of town, but it still had a rural feel to it. The Kentucky River was right down behind it through the woods. When I called the landlord, they said that the house needed some work. They said if I was willing to look past that and if I wanted to do some of the work myself, they would knock it off the rent every month. There were several red flags right off the bat that I should not have ignored, but I was desperate and determined to make it work. First walked in, I could tell that it needed some cleaning and a fresh coat of paint on the walls. First 3 rooms I saw were painted like this pretty yellow color, and the rest of the rooms downstairs were all painted different colors, but some of them were only like halfway painted, like somebody had started painting them and then stopped halfway through. The walls were like 2 different colors in some rooms, blue and white. Told me they were okay with me painting it, but they just didn't want me to paint it black or anything. And I thought that was kind of weird, but I didn't really know what they meant by that until we made our way upstairs. I asked how many bedrooms it was, and they told me that there were 3 bedrooms downstairs if you used the dining room as a bedroom, which some of the tenants had done before. And he went on to say that there were 3 more bedrooms upstairs, but most people usually just kept the upstairs closed off. I figured, what's the use in only using half of the house, and I wanted to have a dining room. I asked if we could go upstairs and take a look around. So we go upstairs, and the upstairs is made like a circle house, you know, like it's all intertwined and connected. First red flag, houses with that type of layout are like known for having a lot of spiritual activity trapped inside. I didn't know that at the time though. Like I said, there were 3 bedrooms upstairs, and they each had their own huge closets, and there was a big master bathroom. Second red flag. When we get to the middle bedroom upstairs, I finally realized why he had asked me not to paint anything black. This entire room was painted solid black, and it looked like it had been like spray painted or something. The walls, the doors, the trim, everything was just pitch black, the darkest black color I've ever seen. I'm not gonna lie, it gave off like the creepiest vibes. The first thing I ever did was paint that room. I don't know why I didn't take any pictures of it beforehand. I felt like almost like embarrassed about that room in a way. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the first thing I did. I painted that room. I wish I had it before to show y'all because it was so fucking creepy. The landlord kind of laughed and said he wasn't sure what had happened in there. And I was like, oh, okay. We make our way back downstairs to the sunroom, which was like my favorite part of the house, honestly. Come to find out that is most likely where they stored the bodies when it was a funeral home. Anyways, it was beautiful. It was lined with windows. The walls were kind of destroyed and needed a lot of TLC. I was willing to put in the work. I seen the potential. I was so excited. There was this beautiful grand piano in there, and I was like, hey, can I have the piano? Does it come with the house? And he was like, yeah, as long as you take it with you when you leave. I was like, okay, this is like all too good to be true. What the heck? What could go wrong? Third red flag. The husband asks me, are you scared of ghosts? And I thought to myself, what a strange question. But he was smiling and laughing, so I laughed and I said, no, why? Side note, I have always been absolutely terrified of paranormal things. I've experienced things my entire life, but like I said, I was determined and desperate. He laughed and said, well, good, because everybody that moves in here moves out because they say that it's haunted. He said he couldn't keep a tenant because of it, and for other reasons, like people not paying their rent and just moving out. Like I said, he was laughing, and he said that he didn't believe in that kind of stuff, and he'd been there 100 times by himself, and nothing had ever happened to him. He went on to tell me that the cabinets in the kitchen had been nailed shut by a previous tenant because they would slam all the time by themselves, especially at night. I decided to look past all of this and still agreed to moving in. It really needed to be cleaned, and it needed some work done to it, mostly just painting. So the first month or two after I had signed the lease, would go there by myself almost every single day and either clean the place or paint it or just try to fix it up in some way. I feel kind of like out of breath even talking about it, but I always felt like there was somebody behind me, or like I was just always being watched, like, you know, the sense or the feeling that something's staring at you. Tried to ignore it, but it was overwhelming at times, to say the least. As soon as people started hearing that I was moving in there, they was telling me stories because, like I said, a lot of people have lived here in the past. I had 7 or 8 different people tell me that they had experienced or knew somebody that experienced something creepy in this house and that it was 100% haunted. And then I started hearing all the backstories behind it. People were telling me it used to be allegedly a Civil War hospital. I didn't find out until later that it used to be a funeral home. I'll get there eventually. I'm trying to keep the story in, like, the order that things happened. Nothing too weird happened before I actually moved in, other than like the sense of feeling like I was never alone and like I was being stared at and things like that. There's a basement, of course there was a basement, and there was an attic space. I never went in either. Too scared to go like check out the basement, and so my dad went down there for me, and he said that there was a 10-foot snakeskin coming up the stairs. I have a video of that somewhere.
Excuse me?
We'll try to find it. Basement was dirt floor, and there were like holes to the outside, you know, so I guess it could freely come in and out as it wanted to, and other things as well. It was full of like cave crickets, and it was just like a really cold, dark, scary place. I'm the lease in like October, and I worked on it for a few months, so I think we moved in like the day before Christmas or something like that. Maybe a few days before Christmas. I'm not really sure. I can't remember. It didn't take long before like the paranormal creepy things started happening. The first, like, weird, creepy thing that happened was probably about a month after we started staying there. My boyfriend would spend the night sometimes, but he had his own house, but he did have a key to my place. This particular night, we were arguing. Like, I don't even know what we were fighting about, but I do know that, like, we were mad about something. So I wasn't texting him back, and I thought for sure that he was just going to stay home that night. About 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, probably. Didn't check my phone to see what time it was. I was in bed asleep, and I am a really light sleeper. Woke up to the sound of my back door opening, and so I hear the back door open, and automatically I'm like alert, and I'm like, okay, somebody's here. So I hear footsteps, I hear keys get thrown onto the table, which is normally what my boyfriend would do when he came in. So I heard him, what I believed to be my boyfriend, throw his keys on the table and then come into the living room and lay down on the couch, what I thought, and go to sleep. Like I said, I was mad at him, so I was like, I'm not even gonna acknowledge that he's here. I'm just gonna go back to sleep and deal with it in the morning. Except in the morning, when I wake up and go look on the couch, nobody's there. So I text my boyfriend and I'm like, hey, were you here last night? And he was like, no, why? And I was like, oh, that's weird because somebody was here. Somebody definitely came inside and I heard keys and somebody walk into the living room. And remember, I had a stalker, so my first thought was not paranormal. My first thought was my stalker. So I went to investigate more, and I found the basement door open. I think I forgot to mention, this was the first night that I had spent in the house with just me. Like, my kids weren't there. They were spending the night with my mom this night. Close the basement door, and I leave, and I call somebody to come check out the basement and make sure nobody's down there, and there was nobody there, and I still was just feeling unsafe. This house had 6 entryways and 100 windows that were not very secure. Nobody was there. Nothing was there. And that was only the beginning of all the rest of the creepy paranormal shit that we were about to experience.
All right. Next.
The Smurl haunting is another story that was turned into a Conjuring movie, but the real story behind it is actually really chilling. In 1974, Jack and Janet Smurl decided to move into this house in Pennsylvania. They had a little family they intended to grow, and they needed more space, more room for them to grow. But very quickly after moving in, they realized that something was very wrong with the house. They started hearing really strange sounds coming from the ceiling, just from all over the house. On top of that, they started smelling really bad smells, like something almost like death was in the house. Then one night, things started escalating when their family dog was picked up and thrown across the room. This startled the entire family. Obviously, their dog was just thrown across the room by an unseen entity. This is when they knew they needed to get help. The family had lived in this house for years. They asked multiple people to come and help them, but it didn't seem like anyone could. Things just continued to escalate, with Jack saying that he was SA'd in this house, and then Janet later came out and said that she was also SA'd. Both claimed that this was by an unseen entity. This is when the family decided to call Ed and Lorraine Warren, and as we know, they're very popular demonologists, and I have big problems with them, but besides that, they were called in to help. Ed and Lorraine decided that there were 4 spirits that lived in the house. There were 2 women, and one of them was a teenager. There was also a man who was there that had passed away in the house, and then they also thought that there was a very powerful demon residing inside. The Warrens stepped into action, immediately called the priest to come and bless the house, but this didn't help. Altogether, they had to perform 3 exorcisms of the house to be able to remove the spirits and the demon entity. The Smurl family did eventually think that the demons had left the house. They were able to go on and lead a perfectly normal life. But this did gain attention in the media, and soon their house became a hotspot for people just driving by. But this too would eventually die down, and the family was able to live a very normal life with all of their children growing up and being able to just live. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's all just a hoax, or is there some truth behind it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and follow for more spooky things.
Next story.
Ghost story time about the haunted farmhouse I lived in for 5 years. So this was my parents' room. My older brother was in this room way down here, my little brother across from him, and I was the only person on the main floor. So when we first moved in, I was on the main floor by myself. I had like some creepy stuff happen to me, but it wasn't like too bad. Like I would hear scratching at my door in the middle of the night, or sometimes my door handle would turn. I always kept my dog with me, and he would sometimes growl at my door. My brother only lived in the house in this room for about a year, and he moved out and said that he couldn't take it anymore. Now, unfortunately for me, he didn't tell me what was going on up there, so I moved up there and I took his room, and that's when some stuff started happening to me, and I didn't realize had also happened to my brother and caused him to move out. My parents' bedroom right here, there's a bathroom back here. This was the really, really bad energy part of the house. So negative, dark, like if I was upstairs in the middle of the night and I needed to use the bathroom, no way in heck would I ever set foot in that bathroom. I was running downstairs to use the other bathroom, okay? That's how bad it was. So when I took his room, things started happening. Stuff would fall off of my wall in the middle of the night randomly and wake me up. It would do this thing we used to call the breath. Basically, it would sound like someone standing literally right behind you in your ear going,
Oh, no.
And it did this to all of us at different places in the house at different times. It did that to me the very first time in the middle of the night when I moved up to this room, scared the living out of me, okay? Would sometimes wake up in the middle of the night and hear it whispering my name in my ear. For a little while, the visions started. And I say visions because they weren't normal dreams. They were horrifying. One in particular, I had one about that bathroom over here that I said I wouldn't set foot in. I had a dream that I used the bath, looked in the mirror, and there was blood coming out of my eyes, literally going down my face, and I just started screaming, and I woke up screaming. Like, it was... I still can't think about it because of how horrible it was. So I started seeing stuff like that, bad stuff in the house. After that happened, I was so scared. My little brother put his mattress into my room, and he would sleep in my room with me next to me, and he did that for 2 years. And sometimes he would play video games late at night, and he would accidentally fall asleep. If that happened, it would do stuff to me in my room. It would wake me up somehow, scare me somehow. So I didn't realize that happened to my older brother as well, and that's why he moved out. It would have been nice for him to tell me that, right?
Okay, story time again on our haunted house. We bought this house a year ago this week, actually, and it's 116 years old, and it's been sitting, and it sat vacant for a little over a year before we bought it. So before we bought it, you can see right here in this picture, there was broken glass. There had been people probably broken into the house, squatted in the house, and a lot of things. There was about an inch thick of dirt in the whole entire house. It was so disgusting, gross. There were some broken windows throughout the house. But we really wanted to buy it and to fix it up and make it like our dream home because it's so cute. So we get to work on it, making it cute. This was our first project we did, was the fireplace in the front formal living room and dining room. And we redid the floors, we painted. Obviously, we're missing our baseboards in this picture. Another floor picture. Of course, as we're like demoing and redoing stuff, we're finding like really old newspapers that are anywhere between 60 years old to 100 years old. Like, literally, look at those pictures. So funny. And this newspaper is actually from Chicago, and I don't live anywhere near Chicago, so that's weird. So we buy this house, and about 2 months after we started living there, it's Halloween, and we're having a barbecue and a fire pit on our front porch, and this lady comes by, lives a couple houses down, bringing her kids trick-or-treating, and the first thing she says to me goes, "Oh, you guys were the ones that bought this house? So cool. I used to know the old lady that lived here. Was there baby dolls on the walls when you bought it?" Excuse me, miss. Baby dolls on the walls? What? Like this, but like inside your house, like on your walls, around your bed, and in the living room, like this. So I just said, "Oh, no, there was no baby dolls in here." And she goes, "Oh, that's so weird. The girl used to babysit me, and she always had these baby dolls, like, nailed to the walls." And I was like, "Oh." And then she kind of just, like, walked away and left me hanging there. I was like, sick. So a couple months go by again, and I meet an old lady, and I cut her hair, and she's like 90 years old, so she's lived in this town for a long time. And she starts sitting there and telling me about my neighbor, which, if you saw my previous post, is a dirt lot. The house is burned down. There's no neighbor. And she goes, "Oh, have you heard about what happened to your neighbor?" And I'm like, "What happened to my neighbor? Like, what happened to her?" And so she goes on to tell me, this one needs its own story for itself, actually. So part 2 for this.
So let's talk about this little haunted house that we looked at to possibly buy, why we're not buying it, and why my husband never wants to talk about this house ever again. Make sure to stick around because I will be showing you a photo of a very strange shadow box that you can crank that we found in one of the rooms, along with the close-up of what we believe is one of the ghostly occupants. Backstory really quick, we are currently selling our home in one state. When it sells, we're moving to another state. And a couple weeks ago, we took a trip out to this other state to do some home shopping. If you follow me, you know that I have a huge love for old homes, Victorian homes. I'm also a professional evidential psychic medium, so a ghostly encounter in an old Victorian home was bound to happen at some point. Now, this house was built in 1900, and it was the second house that we were viewing on the first day.
While we were waiting for the realtor to open the door, my husband decided to take a picture of this house. You can see me right there. And remember for later, there are no trees behind me in front of this house. So we make it inside the house, we're walking around. Immediately, I found it a little bit difficult to breathe, which was to be expected. It's an old house, they were doing renovations at some point, and things were okay until we started going upstairs. That's when things got a little iffy. We make it to the top of the stairs and the energy gets heavy. I immediately felt pressure in my chest. I could not breathe. I heard somebody had died in the house. I was hearing that there was a long-term illness. I started getting very, very sick to my stomach, which usually tells me someone had a sickness or illness that was long-term that required treatment. While I was feeling all of these things going on as if it was happening to me, which is very typical when I open up and connect, I was also hearing tuberculosis. And while I was connecting in, I then hear my husband start freaking out a little bit. He kept saying over and over again, "Hey, it's really heavy in here. The energy is really heavy in here. I don't think this is good. I'm gonna go back downstairs." But what's interesting is neither of us went downstairs, and the rest of everything was a little bit of a haze because we kept kind of going from room to room. I don't remember the specifics of every single room. Some of the rooms I did not even go into. My husband and I get together and we're kind of going along the upstairs together because we're both having the same experience, which was very frightening for him because he is a little sensitive, but he chooses not to engage, and especially the feeling part of it was what was getting to him. At this point, we're not sure exactly where the realtor is until we walk into one of the rooms and we find her with a shadow box cranking this thing, spinning a picture that is inside the box that has this name all around the shadow box, repeated over and over and over again. I wish I took an actual picture of it, but I do have a picture, so let me show you. We walk in the room to find our realtor cranking this shadow box, which is spinning this picture here. You can't really see it, but the name is repeated over and over and over again in this box. We immediately told the realtor to stop messing with the shadow box because nobody knows what it was, why it was there. It was completely random and very creepy. We left this room with the shadow box and we were all going to head downstairs. They started to head downstairs, and for some reason I started going to a different room, and immediately, whoop, I had someone come up to me and all I could say was, "You know what? We're not going to mess with your house. We're not going to change anything in your house. We're not going to touch anything in your house. We're leaving." Immediately from there, went downstairs, didn't look anywhere else, went directly outside. So we're all outside. My husband's freaked out. My realtor's freaked out. And I'm bummed out because now I can't buy this house. My husband's completely freaked out. My kids would never go into this house. So I think that's it. That is until we get to the hotel and my husband decides to show me this picture. But in this picture, he found something a little interesting. He shows me the original photo, obviously zoomed in. There is me. And right up here, what do we see right here? And here it is a little more close up. Can you see what we see? Now remember, what I said in the beginning of this video is there are no trees in front of this house. There was no bushes, no trees. This was up higher in the video. So we have that there. Now my theory is, remember this right here, and see that face right there? I believe that looks very similar to the face in the window. What do you think? Here it is again.
Gosh.
Very interesting. We showed the realtor the next morning and she absolutely freaked out. So, definitely somebody hanging around in this house. So what do you think? Does it look like the picture in the shadow box? Let me know in the comments.
Okay, last video for today.
The haunted house I grew up in is the kind of house that would turn somebody into a believer. It is that terrifying. We actually had to have it healed and anointed by a pastor 3 separate occasions. If you're new here, my name is Casey, and this is my series where I talk about the haunted historical home that I grew up in. A little bit of background. This house was built in the 1800s, and at its peak, it was actually a boys' home where they would have to go and live if they were orphaned or in trouble. They would have to work on the farm, and then they would attend school and church in the one-room schoolhouse church that is actually in my parents' front yard. And if you're wondering, yes, my parents do still live there. Trigger warning, if you like to sleep at night, you might want to just scroll on because this story is pretty freaking creepy. I'm about 16 years old and I'm home alone, or so I thought. And I'm upstairs, I'm working on some homework after school, and it's going to be a few hours until either of my parents are back or until my brother is back. My sister was already moved out at this point. I'm listening to some music when all of a sudden my mom calls up the stairs and she's like, dinner is done. And I just remember turning off my music and being like, damn, I didn't even hear her come in. Like, I didn't know she got home early. And damn, she already has dinner done? Like, how did I not hear her come in and just cooked like a whole ass meal? So I'm starving and I'm geeked for this food, dude. Like, my mom is a good cook, so I'm damn ready, right? And I fly down the freaking stairs, end up going into the kitchen. I don't see any food. And I'm like, what the heck? I actually don't see any trace of anybody being home at all. But then I start to hear singing, literally, just like muffled singing, and it sounds like it's coming from the laundry room. So I go to walk in there and open the door, and nobody is there. So convinced that somebody had like yelled and called for me that I literally ran outside and I sat on the tire swing and I waited on it until my mom got home. Less than an hour later, my mom pulls up and I'm literally like, oh my gosh, you're never gonna believe what just happened. And I'm trying to explain this, and again, it doesn't make sense, but you can't rationalize something that's not rational and that doesn't make scientific freaking sense. That night, I just can't let it go. So I start Googling things, and this is when I learned what a mimic is. I would go more into depth about what a mimic is, but I'm going to let you do your own research and just be prepared to be scared about what you find. I would love to tell you that this is the last scary story that I have, but unfortunately, that would be a lie.
Okay, thanks for joining me today. See you next time. Bye.